This is Bob Howard. Bob's the greatest pulp writer in the whole world.
I'm the boss. Top writer's the employee. No argument. I don't forget faces. All women's figures. The forehead is a man's face. And his eyes were like burning coal. White beard, sex deviance. Hey, hell, you be careful with that. That thing is low. I'm saying, the hell with what they think. I said to myself, Robert Howard, there's a girl who's gonna appreciate your moonlight. I'm in the mood to write a love story.
Why don't you tell me about your character, Conan?
Conan is the damnedest bastard there ever was. To him, combat's a way of life. It's all he's ever known. All he ever wants to know!
Robert's a stranger to me, Miss Price. He's on the world most of the time.
Kind of man needs to be free. I can't be tied down. No road I walk alone.
Bob, you're gonna have to learn how to mix with people. You can't.
If I listened to you, my writing would go to hell.
Quit nonsense.
You want to learn to be a writer? I'll show you what it takes.
I believe in you, Bob. I do. I'd be a fool not to listen to the greatest pulp writer in the whole wide world, Robert E. Howard.
Terror, H.P. Lovecraft. From the director of Return of the Living Dead.
There's no evil in what I do, so long as I do it rightly.
The Resurrected.
I have struck depths that your little brain cannot fathom.
He lived centuries ago.
It is to be expected. The dead take much blood.
But for him, death was only the beginning.
The cops found 8 boxes of human remains. Turns out they've had a rash of tomb snatchings over in Europe.
Now this wizard from the past.
Don't you understand what's going on down here, Lonnie? He beat death.
Has teamed with a man from the present.
He's talking about bringing people back from the dead.
To create an evil that will last forever.
As the hunger grows, my control will surely weaken.
The best we can hope for is to somehow diminish Charles's homicidal and cannibalistic impulses. The curse of the formerly dead is the hunger, and it will not be denied.
Chris Sarandon of Fright Night and Child's Play.
I've drawn down demons from the stars. There'll be no salvation for thee.
John Terry of In Country and Full Metal Jacket. Jane Sibbett of television's The Famous Teddy Z.
The destinies of all things, living and dead, are mine.
The Resurrected.
I was assisting Dr. Pretorius with his experiments, yes.
Mm-hmm. What was the purpose of the experiments?
To stimulate the pineal gland with resonant vibrations.
The pineal gland? Why?
Dr. Pretorius believed the pineal was a dormant sensory organ, a sixth sense.
Yes. Well, that's not a new theory. The philosopher Descartes believed it was the third eye.
It's not a theory, it's a fact.
Then your experiments worked.
Turn it off. Edward, shut it off. Never. Can't you feel it? Robert, in the mind. The mind. It's out of control. You've got to turn it off.
No. I want to see more. More than any man has ever seen.
Edward, it's running itself.
Some things
influence us. He'll devour us and the rest of the human race if he can.
Get out of this room.
What was that?
named. Ever their praises and abundance to the black go to the woods. Ia Shavnigura.
Ya Shavnigura. The black goat of the woods with 1,000 young.
On the wings of night, out beyond space, out beyond... That whereof youngest is the youngest child, rolling alone in the black ether at the rim.
Go out among men and find the ways thereof, that he in the gulf may know. To Nyarlathotep must all things be told.
Nyarlathotep, great messenger, bringer of strange joy to Yuggoth through the void, father among the million favored ones, stalker among...
And good afternoon, folks. Let me just check one thing. I just added my freaking audio here. Hopefully it's working. Yes, it is. Great. Excellent. Welcome to the Horror Mike Sunday Nooner. And of course, we have a special show for you today because this is part 2 of the Weird Tales 100th anniversary. We're ending out the year. Folks, 2023 was the 100th anniversary of Weird Tales Pulp magazine, which began in 1923. So I found it fitting that we should end the year out with one more celebration of this incredible pulp magazine, which has inspired countless books, short stories, movies, comic books, you name it. Weird Tales, folks. That's what we're talking about today. And we're going to be taking a look more today at the films, direct film adaptations, films that are perhaps weird tales in nature, Lovecraftian, or perhaps inspired by such writers as Robert Bloch and so forth. So we're going to take a look at that. And of course, I've got comic books to show you that once again were either directly adapted from stories from Weird Tales or connected writers such as Lovecraft, and stories that were simply inspired or directly ripped off from various writers that wrote for Weird Tales, as I will show you soon. But first, let's take a look at the chat, shall we, and see who is on board with us today on this fine Sunday, New Year's Eve, folks, 2023. Boy, what a year 2024 is going to be. I can tell you right now. Good Lord. What do we got? Joe is here. Hello, Joe. Good to see you, my good man. And, well, a happy New Year to you. Michael Taylor is here. Hello, Mike. Happy New Year's. Happy New Year's back at you. Michael Taylor, great to see you here. Gotham City Comics is here. Folks, Gotham City Comics is on the scene. Happy New Year. Scream Queen Stephanie Beaton is here. Hello, Stephanie. How you doing? Great to see you here. Fantastic. Everybody's saying their highs here. Kevin Helen is on the scene. Hello, Kevin. Great to see you, man. Glad you could join us today for this Sunday nooner. It's going to be a hoot. It shall be a hoot, folks. Now, there are a couple of things that I wanted to say first. Now, if you guys were watching the trailers, I played a bunch of them. Those are films. Some of those films are available currently on Tubi. Some are not. A couple of them are, let's say you can find them, I believe, I don't know, on YouTube or other sources. But we will be taking a look at all of those today. And as I said, comics as well. What I wanted to do first, though, to get a couple things out of the way, because there are a few things that you're going to want to perhaps check out if you're interested. I know when I was talking about Cousin T's on Friday night, people seem to have interest. So something is going on at Cousin T's, folks. I'm dropping it on in. They are having a 30% off sale. Apparently until midnight tonight, right? To end out the new year. I'm just going to drop this link in the chat. I do not make a dime from these people. I think Terrence is awesome. He is at the forefront of battling cancel culture. And that is the reason I've got him on the screen right now. So the thing about this is that, let me find that. Now, there it is. There is a special code I'm dropping in. Oops, a daisy. Okay. Didn't like that. I'm dropping the code in the chat. Now, this is this will get you 30% off store-wide. And that brings the prices, you know, basically the prices that he's got up there, which are a bit high. You know, I mean, it is After all, it's not like Walmart or something. So the prices are going to typically be double that you might typically pay. 30% brings it back down to a fairly reasonable price. So that's what I'm talking about. I don't think he's ever going to get better than 30%. So if you're interested, there's your chance. Check out Cousin T. Of course, when Stephanie was on the show last Sunday, I ended up cooking up some flapjacks that from the Cousin T buttermilk pancake mix, and they were fabulous. I just want to say that right now. They're really quite good. The quality is top notch. You can't go wrong. He sells all kinds of stuff. He's got jam for sale, fried chicken mix, which is awesome, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So check him out. That is the great Cousin T, folks. And just to get one other thing out of the way. Now, one thing I didn't show you at the beginning, but definitely it's Lovecraftian. I just want to get this out of the way. It's a little self-plug here. I'm dropping the link in the chat. This is Horror Anthology Movie Volume 1. I made this back in 2013. So it's 10 years old, folks. Celebrating the 10th anniversary of Horror Anthology Movie Volume 1, which is renting beautifully. Many thanks to all of the people that continue to rent this film. It's absolutely fantastic. There are 2 segments of the 6 segments in Horror Anthology Movie Volume 1 that are Lovecraftian cosmic horror in nature. One of them is mine. It is called Footage Found Arabi, and it kind of supposes this predicament that Lovecraft finds himself in. He goes missing while visiting in New Orleans in 1932. So a lot of the film, a lot of the segment is shot period piece, as it is supposed to be in 1932 New Orleans. I think it turned out really well. And that is part of Horror Anthology Movie Volume 1. So if you care to check it out, I think you'll dig the hell out of it. It is about 2 hours long, folks. There's no filler. There's no wraparound story with this. There's no horror host. It's all meat, right? You got all 6 segments equaling about 2 hours in length. Most of it is sci-fi horror. So just to give you an idea. But that is Horror Anthology Movie Volume 1 for rent. $2. Folks, it's $2 cheap. Come on. So that's what I'm saying right now. Michael Taylor says, they looked horribly delicious, Horror Mike. Excellent. Excellent. I'm glad to hear it. Folks, so what we've got today, so we have a look at first the comics, right? We want to take a look at comics that were directly adapted from either from Weird Tales or from writers that wrote for Weird Tales and got their start in Weird Tales magazine. Now, one thing that's rather astounding, I'm just going to put this up so we have kind of like an anchor point. This, of course, is the Great Comics Database, comics.org, highly recommended. If you ever want to find out anything about any comic books ever published, check out comics.org. And we are looking at the page of Adventures into the Unknown. This is the first continuing horror comic book series, began in 1948. And it figured into Weird Tales more than I initially thought. We'll get into that very soon. First, what I want to do, though, is show you some of the physical comic books that I have. on hand. Okay. So we're going to do that right now. Oh, I see somebody else has entered. Meyer Greenblatt is here. Hello, Meyer. Happy New Year to you, sir. Good to see you. All right, folks. I'm removing this so I can show you some of the stuff that I have. Oh, yes. Oh, my Lord. Now, if you came in at the beginning, you saw the trailer to The Whole Wide World, which is a really good film about Robert E. Howard and his relationship with this woman that ended up writing I believe the novel based upon her experiences with Howard. They were dating for a while. Of course, everything ended in tragedy when he took his own life in 1938, a year after H.P. Lovecraft passed away. So it's a great film. I highly recommend it. And that brings me to, of course, one of the original great Weird Tales writers, Robert E. Howard. Now, what I have in comic book form here, folks, is, of course, Conan the Barbarian. We're going back Marvel Comics Group here into the 1970s. And the Roy Thomas, Barry Windsor Smith adaptation of Red Nails. Now, this is an excellent freaking book. You know, early to mid 70s, Marvel was really hitting everything right on the head. I mean, they were on top of their game, and they knew what they were doing as far as adaptations goes. One, they credited the writers. You know, they sought permission to use the various stories that they adapted from perhaps, Weird Tales, or in Lovecraft's case, Arkham House, as we will see very shortly. But this is a fine adaptation. Now, Conan the Barbarian continues to this day, right? I mean, has been popular pretty much since it appeared in the pages of Weird Tales circa 1930 with Robert E. Howard's first published story in Weird Tales about Conan. So here we have, for example, this is 2023, folks, from Titan Comics. This is issue number 1 of Conan the Barbarian, drawn by Roberto de la Torre and written by Jim Zub. So this is issue number 1 of 4 issues in the first story arc. Now they're currently on the second story arc, and De La Torre returns for the third arc in issue number 9, just to let you know. So they're keeping the Robert E. Howard Conan thing quite alive. As a matter of fact, one of the great things about the Titan series is that at the back of each comic book, they have a section called Robert E. Howard and His Ages Undreamed Of, where they talk about Howard and the various Conan stories that he wrote. So that's really quite cool. You don't see that often in comic books that adapt other writers, but they've consistently done this throughout at least the issues that I have. Anyways, it's a consistent article that appears in each issue of the new Conan the Barbarian from Titan Comics, folks. Now, I guess the only thing I can say about Titan Comics, I don't know. Once again, I said this, I did a review of some indie comics, and you can see that the pages here are glossy. I wish they would print them on matte stock, I don't see the advantage to this glossy stock. It just doesn't do anything for me whatsoever. And I think that Jim Zub, who is writing this, should go back to the original Robert E. Howard stories, find lesser known Conan stories, which have not been previously published or adapted by Marvel, and do them. Adapt some of the actual Robert E. Howard Conan stories. That would be fantastic. But we will see. We'll see if that actually happens, folks. Now, before we dig into some of the more hardcore Lovecraftian and weird tale stuff, I got to show you this. I think you would really, really dig it. This is, as you can see, it's kind of a, I don't know, they did a little bit of a joke type of thing. On the top, you can see this funny looking writing, which if you look at it phonetically, it says HPL. Yes, HPL, folks. Howard Phillips, Lovecraft. HPL Speaks, an autobiographical sketch by H.P. Lovecraft. So it's an article by H.P. Lovecraft about himself, autobiography, but it's also illustrated by Virgil Finlay. And this is, of course, a fantastic Virgil Finlay cover for it. This was copy number 361. They're numbered, and I believe they produced 500 copies of this particular magazine or book, whatever you want to call it. Came out in 1972. Yeah, copyright 1972 by Jerry De La Rue. I don't know if you can actually see that, but there we go. Very cool illustrations. Really a great autobiography by, by Lovecraft. It's a bit brief, but still quite good. Check out that Virgil Finlay art, folks. That is just sublime. He was truly, in my opinion, perhaps the greatest Weird Tales illustrator, at least for the interiors. Now, a lot of people like Margaret Brundage, and I do too. I think she's freaking awesome. But Virgil Finlay is just was an absolute master. There is no doubt about it, man. This cover, just try to get it in there closely. That is just spectacular. So that is the autobiography. Let me get back. I saw a few people talking about some stuff. Kevin says, Barry Smith, wonderful artist. Yes, agreed. He did so much great stuff in the 70s and 80s. The Conan stuff that he did, of course, he did the initial Marvel series, Conan. I think, I want to say like the first 20 issues or so, if I'm not mistaken, something like that. And of course, they didn't really miss their stride because John Buscema came in absolutely fantastic. I'm not a big Gil Kane fan. The one thing you can say about Gil Kane is that for a while, he might have been the hardest working comic book artist living. I mean, the guy was doing so many freaking covers and interior work for Marvel. It was insane, and maybe that took away from his artistry. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he was, to me, kind of very workmanlike, unlike Barry Smith or John Buscema at the time. Their stuff was just always, they knocked it out of the park, That's what I liked about him. Fantastic Conan covers, great detail. Yes. Unfortunately, modern comics use glossy paper. Yeah, except for alternate comics, folks. What's the deal? Look, I'm going to bring out an issue of alternate comics. that's black and white. I wonder if I've got a color. So here we go. All right. Whoops. Whoopsie. I love it. Oh, I love it, folks. Check out Alternate Comics. Now, not only, when you look at it, this is an issue of Wolf and Batsy. Fantastic freaking cover. You'll notice the price. Yeah, folks, that's $1.99, $1.98. Yeah. And it's the same length as any other comic book. It's current. That's what they sell their comics for. And even more notably, now this is black and white. It's Brian Bow, artist. But notice, hey, wow, it's uncoated stock. It's not glossy. It's just like the classic comic books. Wow, what a concept, huh? Alternate Comics, folks. Now here's one. This is Horace H. Hoover, issue number 1 from Alternate Comics. Once again, $1.98. And once again, the interiors are all just uncoated paper stock. Pretty much imitating newsprint. That's what it is. No gloss there, folks. Just like classic comics. So if you're interested in some really good, I can recommend, for example, heartily, Wolf and Batsy and Horace H. Hoover. They're both really quite good. And once again, it's $1.98. See what I'm saying? It's not $5 like Marvel or DC. And you don't get any woke bullshittery. They're just really good. Highly entertaining. I recommend them. So that's alternacomics.com if you are interested. And you don't get any glossy interior pages. No gimmicks. No extra bells and whistles. The art speaks for itself, folks. That's what I'm saying. So that's Alternate Comics right there. Okay. And let's take a look. Yeah, it is a really cool book, whatever you want to call it, special edition. I don't know. It's 1972, folks. So it came out. Geez, it came out like 52 years ago. Yes, it's 52 years old. That's what I'm saying. Wolf and Batsy. It's really good stuff. If you want to, get back to the basic great comic book form, go to Alternate Comics, forget the bells and whistles and the gimmicks. That's what I got to say. That's what I got to say to you. Now, I had Adventures into the Unknown on the screen. I'm going to bring it back up. This is an issue of Adventures into the Unknown. It does not have Lovecraft. It's all just torn to fuck. Pardon my language. But in any case, you've seen it. The classic, what issue number is this? Yeah, I think it's issue number 33. With that classic spider skull. Of course, the poor woman trapped in its web. But, and it's a Ken Bald cover. So what happened with Adventures into the Unknown is that the first 11 issues the covers in the first place were done by an amazing artist called Edvard Moritz. And he did occasionally some interior stuff as well. But the incredible thing about Adventures into the Unknown, which I didn't realize until recently, was that one of the original Weird Tales writers, Frank Belknap Long, who happened to be one of H.P. Lovecraft's closest friends, and also, of course, wrote a ton of stuff for Weird Tales and associated pulp magazines, wrote stories for Adventures into the Unknown. If you're lucky enough to have the original issue number 1 of Adventures into the Unknown, check it out. At least, I think 4 or 5 of the stories were written by Long. He is credited. And throughout the first 10 issues, right, he wrote what seems to be about a total of 20 stories for Adventures into the Unknown. So that makes this particular comic book, at least in the beginning, directly related to Weird Tales. It is definitely in the family tree. Let's put it that way, folks. Adventures into the Unknown. Issues 1 through 10, Frank Belknap Long. One of his famous stories was Hounds of Tyndalos, and that was published in Weird Tales. But he wrote a ton. He wrote a ton of stuff. This gets rather interesting and intriguing. All right, folks. This is astonishing. Number 11. I got to take it out of this thing, man. It's a little delicate, okay? It needs surgery, and it's going to get the horror Mike surgery treatment. I'm going to repair this comic book. It is utterly thrashed. So I'm going to carefully bring it up. Astonishing number 11, 1950, early 1952, I want to say. And as you can see on the cover, the headline story is The Last of Mr. Mordeau. So The Last of Mr. Mordeau, the story itself is very much inspired by H.P. Lovecraft. Absolutely, no doubt about it. This guy inherits an old house. Turns out that there's this weird group of cultists living beneath the house that have, through the years, mutated. And so there's your kind of like a Lovecraftian lurking fear type of formula right there. And at this time, of course, Stan Lee was the editor for Astonishing. Well, for Atlas. He was the Atlas editor. So he probably wrote this story. But on the interior of this, Joe Sinnott wrote, or Joe Sinnott did the pencils and inks for The Last of Mr. Mordeau. And he signed this copy. When I went to interview Joe Sinnott for my documentary Haunted Thrills, I brought this along, and he was gracious enough to sign the interior on the page where he did the first page of The Last of Mr. Mordeau. So you could also say that Joe Sinnott is tangentially related to Weird Tales magazine. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Stan Lee, obviously, Stan Lee grew up reading Weird Tales, and he knew of, or he probably even knew at least several of the writers that contributed a lot to Weird Tales pulp magazine. So there you go with that. And before I get into the next series, which will bring us into the early 1970s. Yeah, that is correct. Everything's getting into the early 70s. So let me bring this back to you. Okay, Adventures into the Unknown. And if we scroll down, this is where you see the Frank Belknap Long connection, as they say here. The premiere issue, issue number 1, included a 7-page abridged adaptation of Horace Walpole's seminal Gothic novel, The Castle of Otranto, by Frank Belknap Long and Al Ulmer. So there you go. And if we go to issue number 1, there it is. That's that beauty. Let's see if I can. I know it's probably, oh, it won't. Great. There you go. Now that's Edvard Moritz cover. Excellent cover. Just love that. I'm going to bring me. Try to, yeah, there we go. That's a little better. So there's Edvard Moritz cover. And check this out. So they have an opener, of course, to our readers. Then the first story is The Werewolf Stalks by Frank Belknap Long, with pencils and inks by Moritz. Fantastic. Next one, The Living Ghost by Frank Long. 12 pages long. Incredible. The Painted Grave. Now, there is a question mark. They're not quite sure if that one pager was written by Long or not, and that's a text story. It Walked by Night, another one by Frank Long. The Cursed Pistol, they don't know who wrote it, but Moritz did the art on that. And then, of course, the adaptation, The Castle of Otranto by Frank Long, and originally written, of course, the story from Horace Walpole. So that particular issue, this is the one that Long has got the most stories in. So it is absolutely very closely tied to Weird Tales magazine. And if you think about it, folks, I mean, okay, this is 1948. Adventures into the Unknown, number 1, comes out in 1948. Weird Tales magazine is still going. Pulp magazine, it would be published until 1954. So throughout really the duration of what you would call the pre-code horror comics period from 1948 to 1954, or maybe you might say January, February of 1955 if you wanted to stretch it, Weird Tales was quite alive when this was going on. So Frank Belknap Long might very well have been writing for Weird Tales as he was writing for Adventures into the Unknown. So that's really quite sweet indeed. And so we've got Adventures into the Unknown. This I want to bring your attention to. You've probably seen it before if you've seen my videos. That is the fantastic Matt Fox cover for Chilling Tales, number 15. And just an artist like no other. When you see Matt Fox's art, there is no mistaking it. The guy just has this weird, primitive kind of look to his creatures and characters that's unmistakable. The thing is that Matt Fox did covers for Weird Tales magazine in the 1940s. So from Weird Tales, he hopped on over to the comics biz, and especially with Youthful Comics and Chilling Tales, and did several covers, comic book covers. So here we have an artist that basically began his doing cover art with Weird Tales and then went on to comic books in the 50s as Weird Tales was winding down, if you will. So I'm going to drop this. You don't really, I mean, that's a fair look at it, but let me show this to you. You've seen it, but I have a matted print of that particular cover. It's fantastic. I mean, he just has a style which is almost medieval in nature. It's just the way that he draws his characters. It's so strange and primitive, yet totally intriguing. It's got that kind of thing going for it. Matt Fox, folks. So let me get this back up here. And we shall go to, I just wanted to point this out. Oh, shit. Oops, a daisy. I almost clicked the wrong thing there. There we go. Yeah, this is the issue I just showed you, Astonishing number 11. And here we have the last of Mr. Mordeau, Joe Sinnott, pencils and inks. And it was reprinted later in 1975 in Tomb of Darkness from Marvel, the 1974 series, in issue number 16. And then, of course, AC Comics, The Crypt of Horror, number 7 in 2009. So I just wanted to point that out to you. Now, this may sting a little for some people, but while we're still in the pre-code era, I wanted to make this perfectly clear, folks. Okay? All right. First, let me come back here. I'm going to remove this. Now, as some of you know, not too long ago, a few months ago, I got this cheap off of eBay. I think it was $8. It's Vault of Horror, volume number 1 from EC Comics, And so when I started, going through the stories and reading some of them, I realized that at least one or two of the stories in here were direct ripoffs of H.P. Lovecraft, right? He doesn't get any credit. What they did, what Al Feldstein and William Gaines would do is they would take stuff that writers had already written, change them around a little, change the title, and just plagiarize the hell out of writers. Fitting Punishment is one of the Lovecraft stories, which was, it's a Lovecraft story called From the Vault, I believe. So they just took the story, kind of changed it around, and just ripped it off. So that's basically where that's from. Now, you guys know this. You may know the story. I'm going to show it to you right now. This will kind of lay it out in the open. Let's get this back. Check this stuff out. If you're skeptical of what I'm saying, well, you don't have to be, because I'm about to show you the receipts, folks. That's what I'm talking about right now. There we go. Hopefully you can see that. Let's take a look. Okay. Now, this is from Wikipedia, and they're talking about Vault of Horror in a section called Influences and Adaptations. Okay, this might have been, they may have called it rip-offs and plagiarisms, but as it says, you have or as it shows, you have a list of various stories. I just showed you Fitting Punishment, which was H.P. Lovecraft's In the Vault. All of these stories were from original authors like Ray Bradbury, Lovecraft, Oscar Wilde, even Clark Ashton Smith. So what Gaines and Feldstein did is that they simply just took the existing stories, slightly altered them, changed names, of course, changed the title, and that was it. They just ripped them off directly. So as you can see here, you have Robert Louis Stevenson's The Body Snatchers, which was altered and turned into The Doctor of Horror for issue number 13 of Vault of Horror. You've got Island of Death. in issue 13, which was Richard Connell's The Most Dangerous Game. Holy Jesus. Fitting Punishment, as I said, H.P. Lovecraft's In the Vault. Terror on the Moors, which was originally Clark Ashton Smith's The Nameless Offspring. Baby, It's Cold Inside. Issue number 17, originally Lovecraft's Cool Air. And, I mean, this is incredible. Voodoo Horror from issue number 17. They just lifted from Oscar Wilde's The Picture of Dorian Gray. They've got Robert Bloch in here. Ray Bradbury, okay, who they... Well, basically what happened is that, as it says at the bottom, after their unauthorized adaptation of one of Ray Bradbury's stories in another magazine, another EC comic, Bradbury contacted EC about their plagiarism of his work. They reached an agreement for EC to do authorized versions of Bradbury's short fiction. Okay, so yeah, they were just ripping off Bradbury, and he caught it. So he was the guy that was like, hey, wait a second, these dudes are ripping off my stuff. And so he had to go basically threaten them with legal action. Then they eventually reached an agreement and credited Bradbury with his stories with the actual titles, right? Too bad for H.P. Lovecraft, of course, he was dead, you know, and some of these other writers, obviously, they, you know, unless their estate happened to catch the ripoffs, they would never do anything, you know. So there you go, folks. That's the EC way. I'm just putting that out there right now. They were pretty damn sleazy, in my opinion. That is just beyond belief. Now, you know, it's one thing, like as I showed you with Astonishing and Stan Lee, with The Last of Mr. Mordell, it's so vague. It's just, there's a Lovecraftian feel about it. It's got elements that you might consider Lovecraftian. That's basically it. They're not ripping off any Lovecraft story directly, you know. These guys just totally ripped them off like plot for plot. Incredible. So that's the difference. That is the difference with these. And I just wanted to point that out because it really needs to be pointed out. All right, guys. So let's move into the 1970s. And with Marvel, you know, there were some great series that Marvel, when horror came back, everybody knows in the early 70s, what happened was that the Comics Code Authority definitely took hold in the mid 50s all the way through until basically about 1970 with comic books. So the horror material during that period of time, 1955 to 1970, in my opinion, was garbage in comic books because they couldn't really do anything. They couldn't even use certain names, words. You know, you couldn't use Satan. The word Satan could not be used on a comic book cover. Stuff like that, just ridiculous stuff. So it made the horror comics very weak, you know. And fortunately, with the early 60s, the superheroes came back. So you had, of course, with Marvel and DC, this great resurgence with the superhero comics. They really took off. And it wasn't until around 1970-ish that Marvel, at least Marvel, and I believe DC was right in there, but they decided to come back, and Marvel actually, you know, they were reprinting a lot of the pre-code stories with some of their titles. They're also doing new stuff, which was great. Now, let me get my glasses on because this is The hell did I put them? Holy Toledo. Nope, that's not them. Oh, they're there. All right, folks. Let's check this out. This is Journey into Mystery, and this is the 1972 series. I'm just gonna go with issue number 1 here. And right off the bat, the great thing with this is that you have Journey into Mystery, issue number 1, Dig Me No Grave, adapted from the story by Robert E. Howard. Okay. And the thing about Roy Thomas and Stan Lee is that they totally credited all of the writers, as you will see. They got permission. They went to Arkham House to get permission to adapt Lovecraft stories, okay? Because they were upfront, honest publishers. You know, that's all there is to it. They really, you know, gave credit where credit was due. And for that reason, you know, I love it. Now, I don't have any physical issues of Journey into Mystery. I plan on getting some. I just, you know, I had a few issues back in the day, and once those were lost or destroyed or whatever the hell, or the dog ate them, you know what I'm saying? I think you do. I just never got them again. So I plan on going back and getting at least some of these, the first issues, because this one, for example, issue number 1, as we can see, Robert E. Howard adaptation, fantastic. I know that issue number 4 is Haunter of the Dark, which is an H.P. Lovecraft adaptation. Yes, indeed. Great cover, too. I do love that cover. Let me see something. Yeah, that's Rich Buckler. I know that Gil Kane did a couple of these covers. I want to make sure I give credit where credit is due on these covers. But Haunter of the Dark, man, H.P. Lovecraft, great stuff. Then we have, I think it's issue number 7. Nope, it ain't issue number 7. Maybe it's issue number 5. I don't know. Yeah, I think this is Robert Bloch. So once again, here we go. The Shadow from the Steeple. Robert Bloch. And I think it's written by Bloch, and it may be a continuation of The Haunter of the Dark. He may have taken the Lovecraft story and then did a sequel to it. I think that's what was going on with this. I got to get both of those issues 4 and 5. They look really cool. Now, I think that's a Gil Kane cover, folks. I don't have the Gil Kane alarm, but that's a Gil Kane cover right there. So as you can see, Journey into Mystery, man, they're doing legit adaptations of Weird Tales writers, which is fantastic. And that brings me to Marvel's Tower of Shadows. Let me just remove that because I have issue number 3 right here, folks. Oh, yes. This is beautiful for a couple of reasons, okay? A, it's Tower of Shadows number 3. And let's take a look here. Yeah, you have writers like Len Wein. You got Gene Colan doing art. But you also have, let's see where the hell it is. Oh, yes, there it is. Absolutely fantastic. Okay. An adaptation of H.P. Lovecraft's The Terrible Old Man with art by Barry Windsor Smith And if you look down here, I'm going to bring it in. Hopefully you can read this at the bottom. Well, you can see it's Stan Lee, editor, Roy Thomas, Barry Smith, artist, by special arrangement with Arkham House, Sauk City, Wisconsin, right there. So they actually went to Arkham House and they got the rights to do The Terrible Old Man. And they credited H.P. Lovecraft as the original author. That's how you do it, folks. Okay? Unless you're sleazebags. That's all. That's my point. That's my entire point with that thing. Now, it doesn't stop with Marvel. They were doing great stuff. Of course, as I said before, they actually were reprinting some of their original pre-code Atlas stuff in the 70s. They did reprints of that early 50s stuff, which is fantastic. But before I go further, here's a little trivia question for you guys. What was the first comic book ever published that was entirely dedicated to H.P. Lovecraft? What was the first comic book ever published dedicated to H.P. Lovecraft? It's also in early 1970s, folks, to give you a hint. But it's not Marvel or DC. Oh, no, it is not. It is Skull number 4, the special Lovecraft issue. There it is, folks. This is the first comic book ever devoted to H.P. Lovecraft. As you can see, the art there on the cover, it's a bit of a takeoff on the Hound. Hilariously, as you can see, they put EC on the casket, which is pretty damn funny. But now I've got to be a little careful with this because it's an underground comic, folks, which means there are naughty bits in it. You know what I'm saying? And I think that you do. So I'm going to carefully, yeah, we can, yeah, this is, goddamn, Sheridan. Check this art out. I think it's Jay Sheridan, underground artist. That is just fantastic. Okay, what do we got? Yeah, and of course, this is the Hound, and I believe it's Deitch. It's either Deitch or Dallas, I think. All of the underground artists are doing this stuff. There's a nice splash page. H.P. Lovecraft's The Hound. Beautiful use of zip tone in there. I just dig the hell out of that. And yeah, Arnold comes in here as well. This is Arnold. I think this might be Pickman's model. It is Pickman's model. Herb Arnold. A nice one-pager from the story. And he's doing a takeoff on, what was it, Saturn's Child, or the infamous one where he's holding it's Goya, right? Saturn's Child, Saturn's something, where he's like eating his own son or whatever. But really cool. Really cool one-page spread there by Herb Arnold. So this is it. This is, historically speaking, this is the first ever comic book devoted entirely to H.P. Lovecraft. Skull number 4. And you can still get them. They're not that expensive. You can get one, and as you can see, this is a little beat up. If at most for $10, you can find them for $10. They're not that expensive. $20, $30 for very fine condition, you know, somewhere in there. But highly recommended, folks, you know, for the historical value, and a couple of the adaptations in here are really quite good. So it was the undergrounds that beat everybody else to the punch. I find that very interesting. Furthermore, we go into, let's see, we got issue number 3 of Skull. Once again, I must be very careful. And I'm showing you guys this stuff, because YouTube will fucking great. YouTube will zap me. You know what I'm saying? Check out that freaking cover by Spain. I mean, Skull number 3, folks. One of my favorite series of horror comics. There's no doubt about it. Yeah, God. Yeah, you're not going to see the back. Yeah, this has got Tales from the Leather Nun, which you will not see either. It's also got a weird, I can't show you. Yeah. It's got a weird Conan takeoff. Oh, yeah. Testicles the Tautologist. A cynical saga of sword and sophistry. These people were just out of their minds. Ah, yeah. Oh, yes. Now, this is not, it's not based upon a Lovecraft story, but, oh, God, I got to be careful, too. Watch out. Yep. Nope. Can't do that. Nope. That, almost. No, not really. Yeah, it's not too bad. Shit. I wanted to show you some more. I just want to bring this in because it's Richard Corbin art, folks. This is early Richard Corbin underground art, horror comics, as it appears in Skull issue number 3. Okay. And that's all I can show you from that one. Hopefully I can show you something. I think there's something fantastic in issue number 5 you got to check out. Yeah. I think this, yeah. Once again, this cover is by Spain. This is Skull number 5. Check that cover out. It's just totally nuts. These guys, well, they were loving Lovecraft. Let's put it that way. They really dug the hell out of him. And in this particular issue, yeah, one of my favorite comic book adaptations of Lovecraft ever, by Richard Corbin. God, this is fantastic. I can show this. It is The Rats in the Walls, adapted by Richard Corbin for Skull number 5. You want to see some black? This is the genius of Richard Corbin, folks. The use of black and white and zip tone. Check those panels out at the bottom. Check out his use of zip tone. Oh, I don't want to get too close. It is prime Corbin Underground. There's no doubt about that. And a great adaptation of Rats in the Walls. It's definitely one of my favorite Lovecraft stories, especially in the non-mythos realm. But there you go. You know, the Underground guys were all over Lovecraft. I highly recommend issues 3, 4, and 5 of Skull, but be warned, it's X-rated. They're not about that. There's X-rated stuff in each issue, folks. So you gotta kind of watch it with that stuff. If you're, you know what I'm saying. If you're, well, I don't know. I mean, if you don't like nudity or sex in comics, do not get those comics, folks. Let's put it that way. Next up, in my own humble little collection here of weird tales and Lovecraft and Robert E. Howard and so forth inspired stuff, there is the fantastic cover for issue. Well, it's the October 1979 Halloween issue of Heavy Metal magazine. This is the H.P. Lovecraft issue. Now, it's pretty good. Okay, here's what happened. You guys know the story. Heavy Metal magazine came from Metal Hurlant, the French magazine, right? So the French put out their issue. This is an H.R. Giger cover that he did especially for the Lovecraft issue. So I think he hits it right on the head there. He's got the great Giger art, but then he's got this big cat in the front, which is pretty damned hilarious. Not only that, and a great portrait of Lovecraft on the back, you know, by Martine. Fantastic. Man, this thing is 150 freaking pages. The Heavy Metal issue is like 90 pages. They take the Heavy Metal issue takes a lot of the stuff from this issue. They add a few things as well. But I'm going to concentrate on the Metal Hurlant issue for a second. God, yeah. There are so many great adaptations here, folks. I just want to see if I was cross-referencing those. Actually, I did a video comparing the two. You can find on my channel. Yeah, The Thing. Yeah, Voss is in both of these. And if you know Voss, well, then you know just how good this dude is. Really cool black and white art by Voss for H.P. Lovecraft's The Thing. There is also a very groovy adaptation of the Dunwich Horror, or Les Abominations de Dunwich. by Breccia, and it's pretty involved. It's done like this kind of style. I don't know what that style in comic books is called because I'm a lazy bastard and I won't look it up. But as you can see, it's images and then they, with descriptions. They did this with the original Eerie Picto fiction magazines back in the late 50s, I believe it was. Same kind of thing with the stories. But the art is really good. It's a pretty damn decent adaptation of the Dunwich Horror, which I consider to be one of Lovecraft's greatest stories, which may be made into a film soon, folks. The same people that did The Color Out of Space are apparently in the works on it. Now, The Color Out of Space was directed by Richard Stanley, the same Richard Stanley, Hardware, of course, way back in the day. And that incredible, fantastic failure, The Island of Dr. Moreau with Val Kilmer and the other guy, Marlon Brando, where they fired Richard Stanley and brought in John Frankenheimer. Of course, John Frankenheimer, famous for his masterpiece, The Manchurian Candidate. And he also went on to make such films like The Prophecy, which I've got to show you. This is John Frankenheimer, folks. I'm just going to have to do this right now, because if I don't, I don't know. That thing never gets old, folks. That's John Frankenheimer. Okay, right there with The Prophecy. Indeed, the same guy that directed The Manchurian Candidate. So they brought Frankenheimer back in to finish Stanley's. They fired Richard Stanley. It may have been entirely unwarranted. I mean, there were a lot of disasters on the set, apparently, between the actors and all kinds of crap. Miraculously, the film was made, and you can watch it on Tubi. It's The Island of Dr. Moreau, I believe, 1996. So there's that. Now you have also in this some great Philippe Droulet work. As you can see, he did a book called the Necronomicon, and in it, he does stuff like this, where he's imagining that H.P. Lovecraft is some kind of a fish man type of thing. I really dig the hell out of it. I mean, Philippe Droulet is top notch, folks. I don't have to really say anything else about that. And he does these like, it's great. It's like you can imagine, like you're reading an old book like the Necronomicon. This is all Philippe Droulet art and lettering. And he's just talking about the Lovecraft mythos and so forth, with his own, flair. So what ends up happening is that you have 150 pages in this particular issue of Metal Hurlant and 90 pages for the heavy metal issue. So they left a lot of stuff out. Let's just put it that way. Okay. It's in French. I realize that, and I do not read French. However, at least for 90 pages of it, I can just look to this issue for translation. See what I'm saying? That helps a lot right there, folks. So I recommend them both because then you have something you can use to translate the Tal Herlan. Okay. That's what I'm getting at right there, folks. And that concludes the physical books that I have to show you today on the Horror Mike show for this fine 100th anniversary Weird Tales episode. Now, let's see what we got. Yep, we're just about to getting ready to go to the movie part. And of course, the movie part does include Tubi, so it's going to be Tubi time soon. I'm going to bring that up real quick. I've got stuff to show too, folks. That as far as physical movies go, DVDs and so forth, Super 8 even. It's going to be good. It is going to be good, folks. There we go. Oops. Just to get you going here. Let's see. Nope. Present. Shit. There we go. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Ooh. Tubi has got a good little lineup of Lovecraft, Robert E. Howard, and assorted Weird Tales type stuff that we're going to be taking a look at. But first, let's take a look at the chat, shall we? Because I know we've gotten a few comments anyways. Holy Toledo. Good Lord. Okay, folks, I didn't realize how many. I don't even know where the hell we're at. But I'm just going to start. There we go. I remember Meyer coming in. We were talking about that. Okay, so Michael Taylor says independent comics, especially the ones this comic book community is producing, is just as good as anything Marvel and DC is producing. I agree. Cool Adventures Into the Unknown cover. Yes, the early covers were great. Mike, when you get done with the book, it will look horribly nice. Michael Taylor also says Cool Adventures Into the Unknown haunted house cover. Yes, that is issue number 1, folks. Very nice Chilling Tales cover. Yes, Matt Fox on the scene. Very cool that you got Sennett to sign that, because Sennett signed that comic. You have a unique copy, perhaps the only signed Sennett copy. It's possible. I don't know. It is possible, my friends. PBR Street Gang, hello. Oh, I see. Oh, I missed. Hold on. Michael Taylor says, I'm glad someone caught them. Yeah, I'm glad they caught those EC bastards too. At least somebody did, because it's the exposure, right? It's like, yes, these guys are capable of ripping you off. If you're a writer, they will just plagiarize the hell out of your shit. That's basically what Bradbury did by bringing this whole thing to light, which is great. PBR. Hello, PBR. Hello. Happy New Year to you, PBR. Hey, Gary Carlisle's here. Hello, Gary. How you doing? Oh, Slow today's got a wrench back. Holy Toledo. Yeah, you got to stay off that freaking, well, stay off your back, I guess. I don't know how you can stay on your back, but, well, you could. I don't know. But in any case, take care of your back, Gary. That's what I'm trying to say to you. I will be in about 2 months, hopefully. Well, good. Michael Taylor says, very cool Tower of Shadows, terrible old man splash page. Book sounds minty. Yes, it is in top-notch shape, Michael Taylor. It is really, really, really nice. Confession of Unfaith. I don't know. What is that in relation to? Perhaps EC's little plagiarism doohickeys? Possible. No clue. 1922. Okay, that was perhaps a good year. Not as good as 1923, though. That was the year that Weird Tales launched, folks. Historically, one of the great years of the 1920s. PBR saying hi. Happy New Year, everyone. Fantastic Hound splash page. Great detail. Yes. Fantastic art in Skull. Yeah. YouTube will zap you for showing nudity or sex in comic books. Oh, yes. I've been zapped. I still have a warning on my freaking page. On my the studio page. For something that happened back in something I showed in January, from a comic book. Incredible. Fantastic Skull number 3. Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Kevin. Saturn devouring his son by Goya. Yes. Thank you. And that's what it was, right? That he was doing a little riff on that particular painting. I had that painting for years. It's hilarious because Goya was so great. And I thought that was just a fantastic painting. But man, a lot of people I knew when I was living in New Orleans, I had that thing up on the wall. People hated it. It was hilarious. They were genuinely offended by it, Kevin. Michael Taylor, Stephanie, they will if you show nudity. Yeah. Blatant nudity with a sexual type of theme. Not if it's just look, you could argue your case if it's artful nudity, but if it's like sexually suggestive nudity, you will get a warning and they will threaten you. I mean, they say like if you do it again, you'll be banned from uploading videos for 7 days. And then after that, it gets worse. Let's put it that way. Oh my God, for real. If you search on YouTube videos of sex change, okay, but that's sex change. You're talking operation stuff. This they consider entertainment. So it's not the same thing. You say it's, yeah. Yep. Cutting the penis, right? That is all surgical, medical stuff. You can show any of that stuff you want. Yeah, but if there's nudity, they're getting away with it, Stephanie. That's all there is to it. That's the whole thing. It's what can be said. You can't show tits, but you can show somebody getting whipped. What? I mean, that's the state of it all. Okay, that's what I'm saying right now. Nice Rats in the Walls splash page. I love the Rats in the Walls adaptation. Great story. Really cool Richard Corbin adaptation, folks. Heavy metal cartoons are on YouTube. I've got heavy metal. That's what I got docked for, Stephanie, was nudity with the heavy metal magazine. They will get you. Yep. Yeah. And one of two things is going to happen. They're either going to find it and they're going to get you and dock you, or they're not. So you just take your chances, but I've already been docked. So that's the last chance I will take. Michael Taylor, Stephanie, that's crazy. I'm not surprised. Yeah, you can find movies literally, there are films where, like, there's nudity in the films. They're on YouTube. The thing is that YouTube will catch a lot. They'll miss some. Okay, that's what I'm saying right now. Cool heavy metal Lovecraft cover. Yes. Yeah, that's really great. It's J.K. Potter. That is the artist. This guy who was very popular, by the way. Oh, here it is. Shit, I need to take this down. That is it's collage art by J.K. Potter. He would, this is, you know, keep in mind, this is the 1970s. He would manipulate images, as you can see, and create these like weird collages. He did a ton of covers for books and so forth. This is one of them. So that's J.K. Potter, folks. Let's see here. I'm going to put this back up. Where are we? Gary says, I'm going to lay down on the couch and watch this on TV. Excellent, man. Yeah, I use Roku. Typically, when I watch most of the YouTube stuff, I watch on my telly. You know what I'm saying? Shock. Well, it was Eerie Publications. I don't know how that worked exactly, PBR, because the original Picto-Fiction people, to my knowledge, EC did a couple of magazines, and this was late 50s, I want to say. They weren't successful, and but they used the term Picto-Fiction. Then in the mid-60s, when Myron Foss came back with Eerie Publications, he just started using, he was like, in thrilling Picto-Fiction, or whatever the hell he would say on the covers of the Eerie Pubs magazines, you know? So, I don't know. He just kind of lifted that phrase, you know what I'm saying? Michael Taylor, nice art on a heavy metal Lovecraft issue, yes. Best exploding hot chick in sleeping bag ever, yes. That is prime Frankenheimer, folks, right there. The potato sleeping bag race. Even though it's in French, it's worth it just for the art. Yes, that's the whole thing right there, folks. I wouldn't care if it's in French. I'd enjoy the art. First Man on Mars voted best film of 1230. Well, now what does that mean? PBR. I'm not quite sure. You mean of 1230, like it was 12:30 noon? 12:30? I don't know. And Stephanie saying happy 123123. There you go, folks, right there. You've seen it here first. Gratu is on the scene. Bradbury loved EC. Yes, and he loved that they finally cooperated with him after ripping him off. Jacob Boranowski is here. Hello, Jacob. How you doing? Good to see you. Hello to everybody in the chat. Those bots catch everything. Yes, they do. Well, actually, they don't. As Stephanie just said, and I can attest to this, I've seen it, people getting away with stuff on YouTube. They did catch me. I had a nude image not only in the thumbnail, granted it wasn't the thumbnail, but it was also in the video of a heavy metal video that I did, right? It was blatant nudity too, but I was like, okay, it's artistic, you know, I didn't think it was sexual. They did. And boy, they quickly demonetized that video. Let's just put it that way. All right, guys. Well, guess what? It's almost Tubi time. Almost, folks. Almost. I've got a couple of things to show you, though. Check this stuff out. All right. Now, the only film that I have, I believe, in my possession, I cannot find Dagon and Reanimator. I've got both of those films on DVD. But this is the only film I currently have that is a direct adaptation from a story that you can find in Weird Tales magazine, circa 1930. It was a story written by Amelia Reynolds Long, and it was originally called The Thought Monster. Years later, it was adapted into a film starring Marshall Thompson called Fiend Without a Face. This is a film that you got to see. In the first place, it's fantastic. Great short story as well. You can find it online. But so this is directly from Weird Tales. There you go, folks. Fiend Without a Face. I watch it every year. It's a perennial favorite of mine. And of course, it's on the Criterion Collection. Okay. Fantastic animation in this film. I love the script, everything about it. It's really, really well done. So there you go, folks. Yeah, you can see it. Well, I don't want to. Yeah, the hell with it. There's the back. There's a guy getting attacked. For most of the film, the creatures are invisible. Okay, so that makes it even freakier. And when they materialize, these thought monsters, quote unquote, they are brains with the brain stems, right? They're monstrous looking, but that's essentially what they are. And they suck the brain and stem right out of people. That's kind of what they do. And they're hungry little buggers, folks. So there you go. Fiend Without a Face. The direct. Now, this is where things get a bit interesting with 1967 and a little film called Equinox. Once again, this is Criterion Collection. You can also find this on YouTube as well. I think even the Criterion version is on YouTube. Highly recommended. There are two versions of this film. One that was made and released in 1967, and then a subsequent release in 1970 with Jack Harris, under Jack Harris. Yeah, 1970 theatrical release by Jack Harris, where they spent another $100,000 on the film. The original budget for the 1967 film was $6,000. It was shot by Dennis Murin using a wind-up Bolex 16 millimeter camera. Absolutely incredible. And so they had the film, and then Jack Harris saw it. And he was like, hold on. Just want to make sure that that's the correct. I think. God, what the hell? I want to make sure. Yeah, it is 1970. So 1970, they released the theatrical version, which everybody has seen. It had wide release. It was in like 800 theaters across the United States, and it made a huge impact. No doubt about that. The animation is fantastic. Of course, David Allen. And it basically kind of launched these people into their special effects careers. Dennis Murin just years later would be doing, of course, the special effects, or a lot of the special effects for Star Wars. So this is where he came from, folks. But what's more interesting, as far as I'm concerned, is the Weird Tales connection. Now, in Equinox, in both versions, Fritz Leiber, the great writer of horror fiction and fantasy fiction, starred. He was I want to say he was a co-star. He had a role in Equinox as Professor Waterman. Okay. And Professor Waterman is a guy that gets a hold of this book early on. It's kind of like the Necronomicon. Okay, folks. And you open it up and it's got all these weird drawings of creatures and demons and stuff in it. And of course, by doing various incantations, you can summon these creatures into our dimension. That's the gist of it, right? So it is very much Weird Tales H.P. Lovecraft. And of course, Fritz Leiber wrote for Weird Tales magazine as well. And he's in this film. He's literally in it. So all of these guys loved Weird Tales and astounding and amazing stories, all the pulp stuff, science fiction and horror stuff. And Equinox there's an influence, of course, definitely a Lovecraftian influence with this film and a direct connection with Fritz Leiber. So there you go. Equinox. And check it out. I just happen to have Equinox, the 200-foot condensed version, still on Super 8. Yes, folks, there it is. Super 8 from United Artists. And it's in pretty good shape. I've played it before. I still have my projector, which is currently in a box in storage, but I still have it. But there you go. That's the Super 8 version, folks, of Equinox. Now, further connecting Fritz Leiber and H.P. Lovecraft is a book. Fritz Leiber and H.P. Lovecraft, Writers of the Dark, edited by Ben Samitsky and S.T. Joshi, the authority, of course, on all things H.P. Lovecraft. So you have in this book a variety of things. You got some fiction, but you've got probably about 40 pages of letters that Fritz Leiber and H.P. Lovecraft wrote each other. Now, Lovecraft famously was a rabid letter writer. He wrote so many letters, folks, that Arkham House published 5 volumes, this size, 5 volumes of nothing but H.P. Lovecraft's letters that he wrote to people and his correspondence, back and forth. 5 freaking volumes, folks. So there's about 40 pages of letters between himself and Fritz Leiber in this Writers of the Dark. Highly recommended. It is from Wild Side Press. So if you're interested, you might try wildsidepress.com. Possibly. I don't know, but highly recommended right there. I just thought I'd throw that in there. Now, these are tangential. I did want to bring in a few of these. Well, here's, to be obvious, and this is closely related, of course, to Equinox. Sam Raimi's The Evil Dead. This is particular. I mean, they call it the Ultimate Edition from Anchor Bay. It's pretty swank, okay? Let me show you this thing. It's kind of like a book. It opens up. Pretty groovy. And then it further opens up. And you got the discs in there. I love that poster with that skeleton, with the severed head of the woman. That is just really quite crazy. And it's something you don't see often, So this is a 3-disc set. All the discs there. You got disc 1's widescreen, disc 2 is full frame, and then disc 3 is Ladies of the Evil Dead, folks. Yes, indeed. Right there. So you're probably saying, well, that's great, Mike, but how the hell does Evil Dead figure into this? Oh, it's definitely directly connected to Weird Tales. Because as far as I'm concerned, Sam Raimi drew his main inspiration from Equinox, this film. Okay? Because in this film, kids find a book that they're able to summon demons and creatures from another dimension into their realm. And in this movie, kids find a book, which is the Book of the Dead, which brings demons and creatures into their own realm. Okay, so needless to say, Sam Raimi was very much influenced by Equinox when doing The Evil Dead. Now these are inspired. I wanted to bring this out. Yeah, this is just inspired. It's really quite good. It's the Valdemar series, the Spanish films. Highly recommended if you can find them. You have La Herencia Valdemar and La Sombra Prohibida. These are this set. It's a Blu-ray two movie set. Really great stuff. All kinds of characters in this, even including Aleister Crowley. He figures into this. Of course, Lovecraft. You've got a variety of characters that come together. And it's really well done. Very well done. You can find this. You could probably rent it. It's probably on Amazon. If you guys watch stuff on Amazon Prime, it might be on Netflix. Just look up Valdemar, and I'm sure you'll find it. Yeah, it doesn't have much to it. It's just the 2 discs. But quite good. Worth it. And very, very Lovecraftian. Weird Tales. That type of stuff. John dies at the end. One of my newer favorites, no doubt about that. Let's put it this way. Of the 21st century, this is one of my favorites. There ain't no doubt about it. It is the great... why do I keep... Don Coscarelli. Jeez Louise. Don Coscarelli directed this. Of course, Coscarelli is famous for Phantasm. The Phantasm films, you know. And John Dies at the End is just fantastic. Based upon a novel by David Wong, which is great as well. Highly recommended. Such a great novel. Basically, it all has to do with this drug, this black goo type substance that if you ingest it, it allows you to see things that exist in our dimension but are previously unseeable without the goo. That's basically it. John Dies at the End. Great cast. Fantastic Coscarelli film. Highly recommended. I believe it's still on Tubi. Okay. So there you go. John Dies at the End, folks. Last but certainly not least, the stuff I brought out. It came from outer space, of course, based upon the Ray Bradbury screenplay. And Ray Bradbury, obviously, he wrote for Weird Tales magazine. So this is directly related to Weird Tales in that sense. And it's a great film. In 3D or not, it doesn't matter. It's a fantastic 1950s science fiction film. Highly recommended. Richard Carlson, of course, is back. He's starred in Creature from the Black Lagoon. So Those are two great ones from the time period. And that's it for my little physical DVD, Super 8, whatever the hell you want to call it, type of thing, until we get back to the Tubi, which is right there. Oh, yes, folks. Ooh, it's so close to Tubi time, I can't even stand it. Okay, let's get back to it. Michael Taylor. Mike, maybe one day you can show your comic book collection, every comic you own. Okay, yeah, I prefer putting them into certain genres, Michael Taylor. That's what I do for you. If you watch my videos, if you watch all my videos, you will definitely see every comic book that I have, that I own, or used to own, because I probably sold a few of those. Michael Taylor, a lot of those Super 8 box covers had very nice art. Yeah, that was original. This was original art here, folks, from the poster, the original movie poster of Equinox. Great stuff, by the way. The Mystic Museum in Los Angeles has a whole Evil Dead exhibit right now. Ooh, nice. That is nice. Found out about it watching Grim Collective, of course. And there's the link, folks. Check it out. Very cool Evil Dead box design. Yeah, I thought they really did a great job. Ah, yeah. So is it scheduled for demo or something? I think I have a DVD case design like your Evil Dead. I think that's a classic 3-disc box design, if I'm not mistaken. Sucked, PBR. Sucky the Dicky. The Evil Dead remake. Absolutely fucking horrible. They totally lost track of what the Evil Dead was, and that's why it sucks so bad. Like, the idea with the Evil Dead was that once these demons were unleashed, they were joyously demonic. They didn't hide in bathrooms behind shower curtains, waiting to go boo, like in this stupid ass remake, which was just cringeworthy and bad. They were joyous demons. Yeah, they were out there just completely screwing with everybody they came in contact with, which is the idea of it, you know? I mean, they were quite gleeful about totally screwing you up. And that's where it's at, you know? With this remake, they have to add this whole thing about the drug addiction, the stupid side plot. What? Who needs that bullshit, man? You know? So I give that a firm thumbs down, PBR. Yeah, well, yeah, if you're not a remake fan, you're going to hate it even more. I'll tell you that much. Oh, you haven't seen it yet? Don't bother. Kevin says, are the Valdemar movies in any way related to the Poe story, The Facts and Case? No, they are only there is a Poe inspiration as well as Lovecraft, Kevin, in these films. That definitely these guys, the Spaniards who made these films, love all that weird tale stuff, and they love the old classic horror such as Edgar Allan Poe, who was also reprinted in the pages of Weird Tales Pulp magazine. But it does not direct there's no direct correlation with that Valdemar story of Poe's and the name. It's just the character. It's like it's kind of almost like you could call it the Valdemar saga, right? The Valdemar family and all of these strange goings-ons with these people. That's what it's basically about. Michael Taylor, it's coming up on Tubi Doobie Doo time. It is. I just watched It Came from Outer Space. True classic. It is. It's great, man. Love that freaking film. Oh, I see. I gotcha. So it's just it's kind of a one-off type of Evil Dead display. I gotcha. Oh, that's cool. They're horror fans. So are all of the exhibits based upon horror films, Stephanie? And is it just horror films? Do they do stuff based upon horror writers or, other people? I think they have Y2K there right now, too. Okay. Interesting. Okay, guys. Well, it's Tubi time, needless to say. And we're going to start off with a film that a lot of you, maybe all of you, haven't even watched yet. But I highly recommend this film. Okay. It is The Last Case of August T. Harrison. It's a very low budget film. It's only 66 minutes long, from 2015. But you really should check it out. It's Lovecraftian. Let's put it that way. It's got that atmosphere that works really well. And there's very little BS in this film. Okay. Let me read the description to you. A private eye comes out of retirement to solve a bizarre missing persons case, and it's drawn into a dark conspiracy involving the works of H.P. Lovecraft. There you go, folks. So it's good. I really dug the hell out of it. The Last Case of August T. Harrison. I highly recommend it. It's currently on Tubi. It's a perfect indie, very low budget film, So there you go. I also love The Last Lovecraft, Relic of Cthulhu. This is just an outright comedy, folks. It's a horror comedy from 2011. It is pretty damned hilarious. And yeah, you got to, if you want a good laugh, and these people, well, they love Lovecraft in the first place. They're familiar with Lovecraft. So that's a big plus. They're not just using the name. They really dig it. As a matter of fact, the extra thing about this film, let me just go over to it. It says, a mopey office worker who learns he's the last living kin of writer H.P. Lovecraft finds out that the monsters of Lovecraft stories are very real. So this guy, this office worker, is also a comic book artist who puts out his own independent comic books. So there's this whole thing, this subtext within this film at a comic book store, all of the stuff. It's got all of the geek out material that you might love. Let me put it that way. And some really good effects in this film. It's definitely low budget, but it's well written. I think it's pretty hilarious. You might get a big kick out of it. The Last Lovecraft. I really dug the hell out of it. Switching gears to hardcore Lovecraft, and of course, we're talking about Stuart Gordon, 2001, Dagon. What could be the greatest adaptation of Lovecraft ever? It's up there. It's way, way up there. Because what Stuart Gordon did is he took the two stories, Dagon and The Shadow over Innsmouth, and combined them and made it into Dagon. So in that sense, it's, to me, a very good adaptation of both. Of course, I would like to see both strictly adapted. That's, it's an absolute fact. I would love to see like a period piece adaptation of The Shadow over Innsmouth. That would be fantastic. But what we have here is, it takes place in 2001. It's a modern day adaptation. A boating accident leaves a young man and woman stranded in a decrepit Spanish fishing town that they discover is in the grips of an ancient sea god. What a cast, great acting all the way around. Stuart Gordon on the top of his game with this film. And needless to say, folks, I have the trailer to it. Oh, yes, I do. And we're going to watch it right now. There it is, folks. Dagon. If you haven't seen it, see it. It's on Tubi. And get ready for an experience. Okay. Stuart Gordon, he doesn't pull punches. The guy goes, he's full throttle with his horror films. He's not leaving anything out. And he doesn't in Dagon. But at the same time, even though it is occasionally rather graphic and grisly, it has a complete, very successful Lovecraft atmosphere as far as the town, the fishing village, in that Shadow over Innsmouth feel. He gets it. He gets it because Stuart Gordon got Lovecraft. If you've seen Reanimator or From Beyond, you know what I'm talking about. He takes the material, the Lovecraft material, and obviously he makes it modern because it's set in modern day whenever it was filmed, and he'll add, comedic elements to it, occasionally, but they always have that heavy Lovecraftian element of whatever it is. If it's Herbert West, Reanimator, the character Herbert West, that's Jeffrey Combs, right? He comes off as Herbert West. People go, yeah, that's Herbert West, man. That's the guy from the story. That type of thing, even though it is set in modern day and he takes certain liberties, obviously, with the story. I think Gordon is the guy that understood Lovecraft the most, as far as any filmmaker that continued to do any kind of Lovecraft adaptations. Let's put it that way. Let me get my glasses on here. There. Let me get back to it. Where are we now? Good Lord. Ah, yeah, The Void. Now, the Void is not based upon a Lovecraft story. It is extremely Lovecraftian. Highly recommended. If you haven't seen this, it's another one that's kind of hardcore with graphic violence and gore, but it really delivers. It delivers in spades. This is one of my favorite Lovecraft adaptations of all time. Yeah, the people in the setting is fantastic. It's kind of like it's a small town, and there's a hospital that's being shut down because they built a new hospital, and so they're shutting down the old one, but there's still a skeleton crew at this old hospital, and it's kind of out in the boonies. And these people get trapped in this hospital by forces beyond their comprehension. That's really what's going on here. The Void, 2017, only 6 years ago, folks. It's a relatively new film, highly recommended. On the other hand, the Dunwich Horror, which is a direct adaptation, so to speak, of the Lovecraft story, is perhaps one of the worst adaptations of Lovecraft I've ever seen in my life. I don't even know what the hell they were thinking about. Dean Stockwell, who is a great actor, right? He plays Wilbur Whately. He is the main character in the Dunwich Horror. However, he is not Wilbur Whately. He is not like the character in the story, which just nullifies this film from the get-go. Further, they've had to throw in this kind of quasi-romantic angle with Sandra Dee, which doesn't even happen in the story. If you're to add insult to injury, let's put it that way. This is just a crap freaking attempt at Lovecraft from 1970. I would not wish it on my worst enemy. Or maybe I would wish it on my worst enemy and have to watch it for eternity over and over again. That would be quite painful. Let's put it that way, folks. On the other hand, there's Call Girl of Cthulhu. Oh, yes, you've heard that right. And I liked it. 2014 film, very low budget flick from Camp Motion Pictures. And it's kind of like it's kind of like a cosmic horror romance, I think. It's really quite good. Okay, Call Girl of Cthulhu. Hopeless virgin Carter finally finds the one in a sex worker named Riley, who, as luck would have it, is already betrothed to the alien god Cthulhu. There you go, folks. It's good. I really enjoyed this film. It's got a lot going for it. It does have a lot of comedic elements, even though they don't call it a horror comedy. But it's engaging. It's sexy. It's funny. And it's got some good Cthulhuid type creatures going on. Oh, yes. Best documentary on Lovecraft, hands down, Lovecraft, Fear of the Unknown. You know that because you got people interviewed, including Guillermo del Toro, Neil Gaiman, John Carpenter, Stuart Gordon, and of course, S.T. Joshi. As I said before, he is the authority on all things Lovecraft as far as the books go and everything. Fantasy, horror, and science fiction authors and filmmakers dissect the life, work, and legacy of the brainchild of the Cthulhu mythos universe. Lovecraft, Fear of the Unknown. It is really quite groovy, folks. I cannot recommend this documentary enough. If you want to find out about Lovecraft, check this out. It is top-notch, and it is on Tubi. Let's take a little break from Lovecraft and move over to Robert E. Howard. Still, Conan the Barbarian is on Tubi, folks. This is the 1982, the first film with Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I love it. It's great. I think maybe Conan the Destroyer, which was the second film, is better. But I like this one anyways. They did have Conan the Destroyer on Tubi. They yanked it. Maybe they'll put it back on. I'm hoping that's the case. But in any case, this is the, of course, 1982 film adaptation of Robert E. Howard's work and character. Conan sets out with his companions to learn the riddle of steel, which will give him ultimate power and kill the arch-villain Thulsa Doom. Of course, Arnold Schwarzenegger, James Earl Jones, Max von Sydow, Sandal Bergman. Yes. There you go, right there. And, of course, directed by John Milius. Really good Conan film. Now, could you adapt? I mean, obviously, if you go back to Robert E. Howard's original Conan books, there's a lot to adapt, and I would adapt them directly. Like I would take something like The Tower of the Elephant and make a direct adaptation of that without adding any stuff, no unnecessary comedy, nothing like that. I would just do a direct adaptation and be done with it. And hopefully somebody's going to do that. There's a lot of great Conan stories, and there are other Robert E. Howard stories that were published in Weird Tales that deserve to be made into films, But at least they got Conan the Barbarian on Tubi. That is really quite nice indeed. And they also have, I know some of you guys probably watched this when you were young. I did not see it. It is Conan the Adventurer series from 1993. I am not familiar with this, and I probably won't end up watching any of it unless one of you guys in the chat says, oh, Jesus, you got to watch this thing. It's fantastic. I'll probably end up skipping it, but it is available, folks. That's why I put it on my list, just in case some of you guys may have been kids in the early 90s or teens or whatever and watch this. Well, it's on Tubi, so you can relive those childhood memories by watching Conan the Adventurer, the animated series. And that's what I'm saying right now to you. And let's see. We've got Edgar Allan Poe documentary. This is no good, folks. I did not like this at all. It bugged the shit out of me. I stopped watching it like 5 minutes into it because the guy's like talking. I'll give you an example. I'm watching this, it's opening up, and the guy is talking about Poe's mother. And at one point, Poe's mother is in Birmingham, England, right? They're a troupe of, they're actors that do like, I don't know, they're an acting magician troupe. That's what they do, right? And so the guy's like, yes, and Poe's mother was in Birmingham, England, which is also the birthplace of Ozzy Osbourne from Black Sabbath, who took many of their ideas directly from Edgar Allan Poe. I'm like, okay, fuck the hell off. Okay. And then they just get into Black Sabbath, right? I'm like, what the fucking hell? No. So I cannot recommend that. This is actually better. Poe, in his own words. Basically, what's going on here with Poe in his own words is this. They start off, and for the first 15 minutes, they give you a really great, concise biography of Edgar Allan Poe, right? Up to his death, which is totally cool. And for that, I recommend this. Then you have this actor, Travis Rhett Wilson, who is known for doing Edgar Allan Poe on stage. So that's the whole thing here. You know, he does a stage show. And that's the rest of this film, is Wilson doing Poe on stage as far as reciting short stories, poetry, and stuff like that. So that's what Poe, in his own words, is. And it's good. You know, once again, the first 15 minutes is great. If you want a kind of a breakdown of Poe's life and death in 15 minutes, you should watch the first part of this film, Poe in his own words. Last but certainly not least, folks, I had to add it. It is a horror comedy from 1963, but it's folks, it's Roger Corman, and it's The Raven. Check out this cast: Boris Karloff, Peter Lorre, Jack Nicholson, Vincent Price, directed by Roger Corman. You can't lose, folks. You just can't lose. More than 2 years after his wife's death, a sorcerer is visited by a raven who claims she is still alive and at the castle of another sorcerer. So there you go, folks. I mean, it's hilarious. I mean, come on. Whenever you get Karloff, Lorre, and Price together, it's funny as hell. And The Raven is no exception. I dig the heck out of this movie. It is now on Tubi. I strongly recommend that you add it to your list. If you haven't seen it, or if you haven't seen it in a while, it's great to revisit. It's just one of those films. Corman, top of his game. Just fantastic. And that's it, folks. That ends the Tubi review of Weird Tales, Lovecraft, Poe, Robert E. Howard films. There are more on Tubi, and some of them just really suck. So be careful whenever you see something that says H.P. Lovecraft's blah blah blah. Be careful, because a lot of these idiots simply use his name, and they have nothing to do with any Lovecraft story. They're just literally taking his name and ripping it off, using his name, grifting, if you will. They're grifting. So that's what it is. Let's get back to the chat, shall we? Okay. Stephanie says the Mystic Museum. That is the site that they have the displays on, the exhibits, folks. They're having the Evil Dead exhibit there currently. Dagon trailer looks good. If you haven't seen Dagon, Michael Taylor, see that film. It's fantastic. That's who was in Dagon. Huh? Not quite sure. Don't know. Dagon, right? Jeffrey? Okay, is there a Jeffrey? Or did we miss something here? Not quite sure. Michael Taylor says, I think I saw Conan the Barbarian in the theaters. Yeah, I saw it in the theaters, early 80s. No doubt about that. Mikey, you only watched 5 minutes of that. That's all I need to know. Yeah. Oh, man, it became aggravating very quickly, folks. That's all I'm saying. God. Nicholson must have been very young in that movie. He was. God. He was had to have been in his 20s, right? So there you go. All right, folks. Let me get rid of this. Whew. Man, oh man. And it's still, I'm almost at 2.5 hours. Incredible. I mean, you could go, folks, it was a 2-hour show Friday night, and that was just on Weird Tales Pulp magazine and related books. We just did movies and comics and just scratching the surface, really. You know, you could, that's between Friday and today, 4.5 hours talking about Weird Tales and related writers and movies and comics. Scratching the surface, folks. You could do an entire year easily on Weird Tales and the extrapolation of writers, movies, comic books, and everything. No doubt, easily in a year with 2 episodes a week. No problem. So it just shows you one thing. The Weird Tales legacy is vast. It's not going anywhere. It will be with us forever, even though some people don't even realize it, right? I mean, there's a lot of people that like Lovecraft movies. They don't know what the hell Weird Tales was. They've never read one or whatever. And that's typical. And it's understandable. I mean, Weird Tales is, the original Weird Tales went from 1923 to 1954. And that was the best. Okay. They did try to revive it in the 70s, 90s. I think there's a lame version out now. Stay away. Okay. Unless you want woke bullshit, stay away from the new Weird Tales. That's what I'm saying. But the one that really counted was the one with the original writers like Robert E. Howard, H.P. Lovecraft, Robert Bloch, Ray Bradbury, all of these guys. And that's it. That's really it. Even though I think it was in the 80s, there was an incarnation of Weird Tales that was interesting. They had William F. Nolan writing stuff, an occasional Harlan Ellison story, and I think Stephen King. They had 1 or 2 Stephen King stories. I want to say 80s, early 90s. So that's interesting. I mean, it's just not Weird Tales, folks. It's something else. I don't know what else to say about it, but I mean, it's like you start with an original, and that's the original, and that was 1923 to 1954. Somebody said you can't go home again, and it's true. Delightful. Well, let's take one last look at the chat here, folks. Okay. Mike, at the end of this year will be the first or second anniversary of this show? I don't understand you, Michael Taylor. I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. You mean the actual Horror Mike show or the live shows? That's possible. The live shows, that could be. You could be right. PBR Street Gang, super chat for $4.99. Thank you, my friend. I really appreciate that. Happy New Year to you, my good man. I wish everybody was like PBR. But at least I've got PBR Street Gang. Thank you, sir. I really appreciate that. In the show, okay. The live show. Okay, I got you. Yeah, I was doing videos before that and just kind of eased into the live shows there. But yeah, that would make sense. Sure. A year-ish. Something like that. All right, folks. Let's take a look. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything here. That is it. All right, folks. Hey, thank you for tuning in to today's show. I really appreciate it. And for all of you still watching out there, have a great New Year. And I'm going to be back, of course, Friday. And I believe still, I think we're going to stick with Friday at 9 p.m., folks, because it worked great last Friday. It was fantastic. Great turnout, everything. So look for the Horror Mike show next Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern. Okay. And you all have a safe and happy New Year. And I'm going to leave you out with just a little bit of Lovecraft for you. Take care, guys.
I was assisting Dr. Pretorius with his experiments, yes.
Mm-hmm. What was the purpose of the experiments?
To stimulate the pineal gland with resonant vibrations.
The pineal gland? Why?
Dr. Pretorius believed the pineal was a dormant sensory organ, a sixth sense.
Yes. Well, that's not a new theory. The philosopher Descartes believed it was the third eye.
It's not a theory, it's a fact.
Then your experiments worked.
Turn it off. Edward, shut it off. Never. Can't you feel it? Robert, in the mind. The mind! It's out of control. You've got to turn it off.
No! I want to see more. More than any man has ever seen.
Edward, it's running itself!
Something's coming.
Don't you understand? He won't just influence us. He'll devour us and the rest of the human race if he can.
That will be quite enough of that.